So I'm here with.
Hi, my name is Shu Yang. I'm a junior third year student at Harvard studying economics and computer science.
Okay, cool. What poly or JC were you in before coming to Harvard?
I was in RI, went to RI for year 1 to year 6 as part of the IP program, and then served my 2 years of NS before coming to Harvard.
So how many schools did you apply to and why Harvard?
So I applied to 3 schools, to Harvard, to Cambridge in the UK, and also to Stanford. I think the reason why I chose Harvard is mainly because I thought that a liberal arts education was something I would enjoy more. So if I went to Cambridge, I had gotten on the economics degree program. And while I do concentrate in economics at Harvard now, the liberal arts program allows me a bit more flexibility in choosing different electives from a bunch of different courses and degree programs at Harvard. So that kind of academic flexibility was something that I really cared about. And I think between Harvard and Stanford, both obviously very good universities, the main reason for me is that Harvard's more of in a more urban area. It's very close to Boston. It's like a 10-minute train ride to go into Boston. And I think growing up in Singapore, like living in a big city, having access to lots of good food, good entertainment was something I appreciated a lot, which is why I picked Harvard.
So you applied to 3 and got into all 3?
I was very lucky to, yeah.
Cool. Did you apply during NS, and do you have any tips for those who are applying during NS out there?
Yeah, so for me, I applied in my second year of JC.
Oh, okay.
So I was applying for universities at the same time as I was preparing for prelims and A-levels. So maybe I can speak a little bit more about that than about NS.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so I think it's a lot about balancing your time. So I think what was very helpful in RI was that the higher education counselors were very sort of disciplined in getting us to prepare all the different parts of the application that we needed to prepare and making sure that we staggered that while preparing for prelims at the same time. So for example, things like your academic statements, your list of activities for the Common App in the US, or your personal statement for UCAS, a lot of those things can be prepared in advance, and it's really about good time management. So I would say for those of you who are still in JC, it's good to start thinking early about the different options that are available and start making the preparations needed, start talking to people, alumni that you know, teachers that you know, and make those connections early.
What is one thing you wish you had known before applying to Harvard?
Oh, that's a good question. I think maybe one of the things that's different about Harvard from a lot of the US universities is that Harvard's trying to move away from allowing you to graduate in 3 years. So many of the other US universities will allow you to graduate with a bachelor's degree in 3 years, which will allow you to do a 4th-year master's in a different US university. So if you want that kind of diversity, then Harvard might not be the best choice for you. So Harvard wants you to stay here for all 4 years so that you can really do your degree, but also explore all these other academic interests so that you're not forced by time to finish your degree as quickly as you can. So that's Harvard's rationale for it, and I think it's good to know that based on what you want with your life. Yeah.
Okay, so some questions about uni life here. What are 2 things you like about Harvard?
I think first of all, Harvard has abundant resources, whether it's in terms of the faculty, the number of top-tier professors who do research, the teaching quality of the staff. Widener Library, which is Harvard's library system, is actually the 3rd largest collection in the US after the Library of Congress and the Boston Public Library. We have a lot of graduate schools that are around Harvard. So, I've used resources from the business school. I've attended seminars at the Harvard Law School. I've taken classes at the Kennedy School of Government. So I think the breadth and depth of resources available is truly unparalleled. I think the second thing that's great about Harvard is the student life. So one thing that distinguishes Harvard is that we have on-campus housing for all 4 years. So as an undergrad, your housing is confirmed. You never have to worry about finding a place off campus, and it really helps to build community. So in the first year, everyone lives in Harvard Yard, which is actually behind the camera right now. So it's a very close-knit community where you get to meet all these other very exceptional, super talented individuals from all around the world with tons of interests. And then from the second year onwards, you're put into one of the 12 houses, and you stay in that house for your second through your final years. And so that really helps to build community because you get a solid group of friends and you see them around and you make all of these spontaneous connections. And I think it's just a great student experience.
What are two things that you don't really like about Harvard?
Yeah, Boston's known for having very cold winters, as I think you experienced.
Yes.
We look like we're pretty casually dressed, but outside it's like 3 degrees right now, and it's early November. So it can get pretty cold in the winter. It can get really snowy, really icy as well. So I think coming from Singapore, that took a while to adapt to get used to. I had to buy a lot of new clothes. I think the second thing is that Harvard's moving away from one of its signatures, which is shopping week, where during the first week of every semester, you could shop a bunch of different classes, check out all of them, and then see which ones you liked and apply for them. Whereas this semester onwards, you have to register for your classes ahead of time. So you kind of have to pick and choose, and although you still have the option to add and drop classes later on, there's a little bit less flexibility. And I think that's something that a lot of Harvard students are now complaining about. But I would say both of these things are pretty small things to pick a bone. I think overall Harvard's been a very incredible experience.
Are there any culture shocks for you coming here as a Singaporean?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot actually. I think there is the superficial stuff, like the way people make small talk is very different. The types of sports people watch are different. Football here means something different compared to in Singapore. And a lot of small things like that. Perhaps one of the bigger shocks to me was in people's aspirations and maybe what they try to fill their time with. So at Harvard, obviously, it's a very academically competitive school. There are a lot of very rigorous courses, but students here take a variety of different paths. Some of them are really, really focused on their studies. They want to write a solid thesis, get into a good grad school. Other people are very focused on varsity sports. My friend trains 9 times a week on the rowing team. There are also people who, love music, put on musical performances and so on. So I'll say the kind of diversity of student experiences here is something quite shocking in terms of how people are focused not just on academics, but on a lot of other aspects of life as well. And I think the unique thing that binds all the Harvard students I know is that they're all super driven. Whether it's in academics or something else, everyone's super motivated and super talented. That's what I would say was the most surprising thing to me.
How about you? What fills your time and what clubs are you involved in Harvard?
Yeah, so I've tried a bunch of different things. I was in a dance troupe last year. So I tried my hand at hip hop. I'm not sure how successful it was, but my friends clapped really loudly, which is good. I've also tried some of the pre-professional clubs on campus just to get a sense of what the business world looks like because I'm interested in that. So we have a consulting group on campus. We have a few investment clubs as well. I'm of course part of the Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia Student Association at Harvard. So we get together whenever there's like festivals, holidays and so on. We cook together. We get lots of good local food, which is a rarity here in the US, which is fantastic. And I've also tried a bunch of other things as well that just seemed interesting. Like I joined the Harvard Rocket Propulsion Group, where we built rockets, because it sounded cool. Like it was in an email, so I signed up. So the diversity of student life here, there's tons of student organizations. There are like clubs for like knitting, for like different styles of dance, for different types of academic interests, for various people who care about politics, various different types of leanings as well. So I think a bit for everyone to sample. Yeah, cool.
Finally, what's one word to describe a Harvard student?
Describe a Harvard student. Yeah. I would say ambitious.
Ambitious.
Yeah, I think everyone knows that this is a huge privilege that we have to come here and study here. And 4 years is actually not a very long time. So I think everyone's trying to maximize the way that they spend their time. Sometimes a little bit, too much trying to optimize their time. But I would say that everyone's super ambitious and, having specific aspirations or very concrete goals and working towards that. I think everyone here is very talented and very driven, and it's a great environment to be in.
Okay. Do you have any last words or any tips for those out there that are looking to apply to the US?
Yeah, I think the US is a great academic experience. It's very different from Singapore. But I also want to note the non-academic side of the experience. Yeah, so I think socially you get to mix with a lot of people that might have worldviews that are very different from how we Singaporeans might see the world. Right? Singapore is a small country. The US is a very big country. And for many students here, because the US is so big and there's so much to see, many of them haven't really traveled abroad as much, whereas Singaporeans, we tend to be very well-heeled in terms of how we see the world. So I think just understanding how different ways that people view the world, how we see different issues, the common values we share, as well as the differences that we have, and how we can navigate that. That's a really, really useful experience. And I think being in the US, there's also fun parts to it. The US is very big. It's very fun to do road trips across like California, see different national parks. The nature here is amazing. You get to ski during the winter. These are all parts of the college experience that make it a lot more fun. So I would say that there are definitely pros and cons to studying in the US in terms of academic rigor, in terms of the cost of coming to the US, being away from your family. It's a 20-hour flight home for me. So these are all different factors to consider. But I think you want to come to a very good understanding of why you might or might not want to study in the US, and to develop that assessment really based on your own values and what you prioritize, not based on the name or the brand of a certain school.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, that was awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.